Welcome back to Sixes and Sevens Footy Nerd Fan Question Special and our Round 9 review. Magic round up there in Suncorp. Every game live at the one venue. Footballer's dream. How's my little mate over in France going this week? We spoke to him Monday, but how's he going today?
I'm going good, Toddy. I think I finally sorted this microphone out that we were talking about at the start of the last show. So hopefully this sounds better for the viewers. And as you said, I did plenty of preview the other day and plenty of good games of footy last weekend. But this one, Magic Round. It's actually Magic Round. I know I drop a bit of Super League every week when I'm over here, but I'm in France and it's Magic Round in Super League. So I'm not sure if they've worked that out to align on the same weekend with NRL and Super League, but both competitions have got their Magic Round, so I can't wait for this one this week.
Yeah, it'd be good. I love going to the Magic Round. Obviously, we're footy nerds ourselves, and it's good to get up there and be around it. You triple dip and double dip up there. Like I said the other day, you get a bit of cashola rolling in. I'm commentating, I think, the game of the weekend, the Raiders versus Storm. I think we'll get a gauge of where the Raiders are at. Obviously, Melbourne's still without Harry Grant. But yeah, it's a massive weekend of footy for everyone. Obviously, people come from all over Australia to get here to Brisbane. They do it really well. Obviously, Caxton Street will be pumping. I guess the first game that's going to kick us off on Friday night is the Sharks up against the Eels. Eels coming off a bye. Sharks coming off a loss against the Tigers last weekend. So for the Sharks, they'll be looking to bounce back, and the Eels will be trying to replicate the same form that they had going into the bye. Obviously, the return of Mitch was timely for the club before a bye. They registered their first win of the season, and they'll take some confidence knowing that they beat the Tigers when the Sharks did it on the weekend. So, how do you see this one playing out, and what's your thoughts on how Para will play against the Sharks?
Yeah, I'm excited for this one. Both teams having to bounce back in two different ways. Parramatta have to bounce back from a win post a bye. And we spoke about this before. Bouncing back after a bye, as we know, can go two ways. It can go, you can come out of the blocks with fatigue sometimes with the week off, or you come out with a spring in your step. So especially sometimes after you've had a really big win, sometimes it's best to keep playing on with that momentum. But we've been in games, personally, I've been in games and experienced both situations. So for Para's sake this week, I think they need to be red-eyed against Cronulla. Cronulla's coming off a loss, obviously an upset loss against the Tigers. Weren't expecting that one, and they're going to be coming off the back fence. So I got Cronulla ahead as favourites in this game, just purely on where they stand on the ladder and probably on their form for the whole season over the last few years, but the way Mitch Moses played last week with his the way he just dragged his team on the back of his shoulders. He's got Origin around the corner, Magic round. He loves the big stage. I'm excited to see where Para can get to if they can back up what they did in that 2 weeks ago, Toddy. But my money's on Cronulla here, just purely on talent and across the park, coming off a loss.
Yeah, I'm going to sit with you on the fence here and go with Cronulla also. I think, obviously, after a loss, Fitz will have them up for this game. As you said, Magic working big stage, big players. I think we'll see a good Nico Hines this weekend. But I am with you. I'm excited to see how Mitch Moses goes after having a week off, going into the bye, what he would have done for the confidence of that team, but also what they'll be like, how him second week in will be beneficial for the team. I'd love to see Lomax there. I'd probably maybe lean towards Parramatta if Lomax was in, but he won't be there. So we're going to stick with the Sharks. And I think for me, the Sharks, obviously, they'll change some things that they did last weekend. All their players didn't play their best football, but really looking forward to seeing the kickoff of Magic Round. And it's an important one for both clubs. Obviously, Sharks to stay in the top 8 race, and obviously for the Eels to just continue to register wins and get off the bottom of the ladder.
It's a good atmosphere to play the first game of the Magic Round. To be special too, wouldn't it, Toddy? Full crowd there, coming out of the blocks. What games have you got? Did you say who you got this week?
No, I reckon I've got the game of the round. I've got Melbourne versus Canberra. Obviously, some big news come out of Canberra yesterday. Jamal Fogarty's agreed to a 3-year deal at Manly, which would be a big kick in the guts for the Raiders. But as we know, we move on from rugby league. It's crazy that, well, Jamal is a big name, but the height from when Lockie Galvin says he's leaving to Daly Trevor-Evans is leaving, and then Jamal says he's leaving Canberra, and it's just cricket. It's just there's been obviously no backlash about it, probably because his time's coming to an end there when it's sort of not as early as other. I don't know. It's a strange one, but it's a good one because they don't need that added pressure. But yeah, they'll look to the future for next year, and obviously the young Ethan Sanders. The second game on Friday night is the Roosters up against the Dolphins. This is a really good game for me. I like where the Roosters got to last weekend. Some of their players are playing, if not career best form, but Teddy, as you mentioned the other day, Billy Smith, Sandon Smith last weekend. Hugo's getting more reps, playing first grade. He's getting better. But the Dolphins, for me, I'm picking the Dolphins. It's a sort of home game for them. They'll be in their away sheds because Roosters will take the home sheds. But I'm going to lean towards the Dolphins for this one.
Yeah, I'm going to jump on board with you, Toddy. I think it's hard to go against the Roosters, being my old team, but also the way they played last week. They were obviously red hot last week. Spoke about it on Monday's show about bottling that performance and then redoing it again this week. And I just don't think against the Dolphins they have the flamboyance the Dolphins have, the way they've been playing. And when I mean by that, I mean the style of footy that the Dolphins are capable of playing, especially around their halves with Katoa and the way Nikorima's been playing with their outside backs, with their centres they've got. I just think they've got a little bit more ad-lib to them than the Roosters do. In saying that, if the Roosters can get on the front foot early and take that momentum from last week and blow them off the park, well then, yeah, they might have a good day out. But I see Dolphins being a little bit more, just a little bit steelier too with their defence. I feel like they've got a bit more of a consistent footy team at the moment than the Chooks do, which is, as I said, it's hard to say because after last week, the Chooks had a huge game and the momentum that they started that match with is what they need to take into this week.
Yeah, for sure. From going off last week's performances, you probably tip the Roosters because obviously the Dolphins went out to a 28-10 lead at halftime, sort of don't return it after the second half and they lose to the Raiders quite easy. So there's obviously a concern there, but I'm sure the Wolf brothers would have the Dolphins up for this one. Like I said, Magic Round's a big occasion. I reckon the Hammer's going to put on a show up there on Friday night and they'll get the job done. In a tight game, I don't think they'll lap the Roosters. I think it'll be a tight game. But it can go, this one for me, while I've tipped the Dolphins, it can go either way for me. I think the Roosters' improvement is getting better and better each week. If they can continue those week in, week out, they'll win more games. But I just think the Dolphins will be too strong also.
Well, it's the consistent performance of Sandon Smith, isn't it? And obviously Hugo there as well. But, he had a great game on the weekend, Sand. I was so happy for him watching him perform on the big stage like that. And as I said before, if he can bottle that, not only the team but Sandon, however he prepared for that game, just take that in again each week, he'll play 7 out of 10. And they need that from him. I just think, their spine needs to be consistent week in, week out for this team to get over the line. And let's see. I think it's a big month for the Roosters because they obviously dropped a fair few wins at the start of the year. They had a fair few losses to start the year and they haven't put themselves in the best position. So this next 6 weeks going around Origin is vital for them to sort of attack that top 8. So, but yeah, I'm excited to see our man Katoa again. Toddy, we speak about in the halves every week. And, I'm excited to see him again at Suncorp this week. Big stage, young kid, double pumping.
He's just getting better. You spoke about his double pump the other week, but it's the young guns. Obviously, Hugo up against Katoa this weekend. Obviously, Nikorima and Sandon have been about a little bit longer. But I'm with you. I thought Sandon was really good last weekend. But if he can sort of bring out those performances week in, week out, Roosters are a way better team because they become a threat. The Roosters have got Brendan Smith and Sam Walker coming back in the next few weeks, close to. So they'll be like the registered wins for before they get back, because they're going to make him a whole different team when they get back. And obviously it'll take time for them to find their feet. But I'm liking where the Roosters are tracking if they can sort of register some wins, but I don't think they'll get a win this weekend.
All eyes on Billy Smith again, I reckon, Toddy. Fan favourite up there, I reckon he'll be. He's been playing good footy. Jeez, he's been good since he's come back. So hopefully we spoke about it on Monday as well, hopefully he can get some good form. He's a rep player if he stays injury-free, I reckon, the way he plays.
He's been
Billy.
so good that he's had limited football over the last 3 or 4 years, but to come back from injuries but then play really strong performances so quick. Like a lot of blokes that come back from longer injuries, layoffs, they come back and they're not the same player. There's question marks about their speed, if they're up to the game. And then he comes back and every performance is just getting better and better. So hopefully for him, he stays injury-free. And he's definitely a representative player in the future, that's for sure.
Great defender. Big, strong. Beat you one-on-one. So hope you go good again, Billy. Outstanding.
Saturday afternoon, our first game on Saturday. I'm sure there'll be some dusty heads rolling in Saturday morning to Magic Round. And the first one that will kick us off is the Rabbits up against the Knights. And Lewis Dodd, we spoke about him, and we weren't too harsh about it, that he should jump back on the plane. But Wayne's picked him at 19th man this weekend. He's gone with O'Sullivan and Jack White in the halves, Jai Gray back to fullback. Latrell's out for a week with that high shot on the weekend. It just shows where Wayne's at with Lewis Dodd, I think, at the moment. It's a concern for poor Lewis.
Yeah, it is. And we sort of had a bit of a joke. It got reposted on the 6 and 7's page, and it said Todd thinks he should jump back on a plane or something. But the context of the conversation was that basically those that didn't listen, we thought, for a guy that's on 800,000 and been brought over from England with the injury problems that they've had, he still hasn't had a start. So you can't see him being in too much of a favour there. And I think for me, to pick the bones out of Lewis Dodd, I think it's probably just defensively. I think over in the NRL, in the Super League, not being a great defender as a half, you can get away with it to a certain extent. I think the knock on Lewis Dodd from an experienced coach like a Wayne Bennett would probably be around that defensive effort areas. He's a smaller body, and maybe he just doesn't have that confidence in him to be, stand up in the front line consistently. I can only see that being as a problem, because he's got a great kicking game, Lewis Dodd. Over in the Super League especially, his short kicking game was as good as anyone, and he can run a team around really well. So, yeah, it'd be great to hear from inside the camp at one point. You're sort of not hearing too much about him. But, yeah, South this week again. Obviously, Latrell out. I don't know how much that'll hurt him, because Jai Gray played great in the games that he's played, and I don't think the team around them will lose too much when he's not there, Toddy.
What would you like to see from the Knights this weekend? Obviously coming up against the Bunnies. It's a hard one to pick, this one. I'm on the fence at the moment. I'm waiting for you to dissect on how the Knights will play, and I'll make my decision. But I'd like to sort of insight of where both teams need to play to win this game, because it's a big game for them. Obviously, the Knights coming off 4 losses. The Bunnies have been up and down, had some injuries. They got beat last weekend, so they want to bounce back. But both teams are under a little bit of pressure.
The Knights have to take, for me, calculated risks. And what I mean by that is as I said on the Monday show as well, they're struggling to create momentum through their middles, through their play the balls, and then that's having a side effect on scoring points. They're obviously looking very predictable. I think the best game they played all year was when they played the Dolphins early in the year, when they put a cricket score on them. And Kalen Ponga, we spoke about it a bit. Kalen Ponga was more on the ball and playing a little bit more of a first receiver. There was one try there that he set up from the left scrum line to the right edge, skipping across field, dropping defenders under, similar to what you used to do in your prime. And he was beating ABC defenders at ease because he's got so much skill. I think that sort of style of footy, halves getting their hands on the ball. They've got quick halves. Get their halves hands on the ball. Allow them to get across the field, drop in blokes under, as you spoke about the other day, which I think will create a bit more ruck speed with their middles. And then off the back of that, they can try and play a little bit of ad-lib. That's what I mean by calculated risk. They've got to start chancing their arm
I
a
want
little
the
bit.
shackles to come off.
Well, I think that's the best way. It'd be interesting to hear what you say. I think that's the best way for them to take the shackles away. If you just go in and just try and play a power game, you just go back to robotic footy. You're relying on middles. Halves are getting angry because their middles aren't getting to play the balls, and it becomes one out. And the thing with the Knights is they've got two rep centres. I know Gaggai's older now, but he's been one of Queensland great players. He's still playing really good footy, and you've got Bradman Best on the other side. He doesn't get the ball. So in yardage, I think calculated risks is moving the ball to your centres a bit earlier, taking opportunities when they present themselves, and then, halves up on the advantage line, playing a bit of ad-lib.
I like that. And then that's when I say when the shackles need to come off, they just need to play football. Throw caution with the wind. They're sitting near the bottom of the ladder. What they're doing at the moment isn't working. So I reckon, like I said, we talk about big stage, big players. Kalen Ponga will relish being up there at Magic Round. He'll be ready to put on a show. To show the Queenslanders that he deserves that number one jumper when Origin time comes around. But for the Bunnies, I think they'll try and beat Newcastle with that power game. Obviously, Jack White moves into 6. He's been there before. Big kicking game down that left side of the field, so they'll put a lot of pressure on Kalen coming out of his right corner with his kicking game. I think he'll take more control of the long kicking game, Jackie Whiten. He's been probably South's standout performer week in, week out. Even last year got their player of the year. This year he's been really good. He just throws his body into everything. And I'm really looking forward to seeing him start in the 6 jumper. I think he'll enjoy that because he's been not a battering ram, but when he's playing centre, he does a lot of work out of his own end, where now he can sort of sit back, relax, and push the team around the park and get back to his rhythm how he used to play at Canberra. But for the Knights...
Sorry, bro. What's South on the ladder? What position are they on at the ladder? Because I was going to say, just even when you're saying it, we're talking about the Chooks before and sides like this that are sort of coming off...
11th.
Are coming 11th. But what's the gap between that and 8th at the moment in points?
They're on the same as 8th. So 8th's on 8 points, and so they're minus 44 as they're for and against, and the Eagles is 36.
They're in a good spot, South.
There's 5 teams on 8 points: Sharks, Eagles, Tigers, Dragons, and the Bunnies. And that's why I say the importance of this weekend. Obviously, Newcastle's at the bottom on 6 points, only one behind South. So the 8th and the bottom spot's not too far away, but it starts to creep away on you. Obviously, with Origin coming up, they'll lose Gagai maybe. They'll lose Kalen. So it's an important game for everyone. Every week's important. But for these two teams, they need to register a win. And like when I said put the shackles off, then they need to get the ball in the centre's hands early, get them to create some space and then play back through the middle, dropping blokes under. And then once they tighten their middle up, play their out-the-back style footy and let Kalen run free and Fletcher sharp. But I think the control needs to come from Cogger. He needs to be on both sides of the field. Or if he doesn't jump both sides of the field, Kalen needs to step up and play Fletcher sharp out the back instead of Kalen being out the back of all the plays.
As we know, Toddy, it sometimes only takes that one really good attacking game where the penny drops and all of a sudden you find your creativity. Footy's such a funny game. You can come off. It's like when you lose. You lose 6 games in a row, feel like the worst player ever. The penny drops after one win and all of a sudden it's the whole momentum swing. So hopefully for Newcastle this week, they find that little spark. But as I was just going to say before, Toddy, when I asked about where South were on the ladder, they're in a great position for the inconsistency they've had in their team. Like, they've had Latrell out for weeks. Cody's in and out. They've been stuffing around with halves combinations, and we've only been critical of other sides or given other sides excuses for being down the bottom of the ladder.
That's the way Bennett effect, isn't it? He gets them up each week. It doesn't matter who it is. And I'm sure he'll have them up this weekend against the Knights. Our second game of Magic Round on the Saturday, our Super Saturday, is the Warriors v the Cowboys. This is a really good game for me because both teams in really good form. The Warriors are sitting 4th, the Cowboys are sitting 6th. which was crazy to think we'd be sitting here talking about the Cowboys sitting 6th on the ladder. We had rid them off for the first 4 rounds. They hadn't registered a win, I think it was, and now they're sitting on 10 points after they've had 4 wins at bye and 3 losses. After 3 losses at the start of the year, we'd had them tipped for the wooden spoon, but they've turned it around like all good teams would. And this is a big game for both teams. One for the Warriors to hold on to the top 4, and the Cowboys to register another win for me. Their last 4 games, 4-0, and the Warriors are 3-1.
I want Cowboys here. I just think we spoke about Purdue last week. We spoke about their halves with Clifford and Deard and how quick they're playing and how good they're playing across the park. You know, they're stretching the attack from all corners. Drinkwater obviously out the back there. I think the Cowboys are a side that can challenge the Warriors. I think the Warriors, as good as they're going, we spoke about it, I still think in attack they can be a little bit rigid. They haven't fully found their, for how good they're going, it's probably been built off more off effort. And their halves are playing really well. They're playing good footy, but I don't think they've got to the level they want to get to exactly yet with the ball. And I just think the Cowboys this week have got the game, especially just the way, like I said, the width that they play with. I just think they've got a game where they can pull the Warriors apart. I think it's time for them to pounce. Warriors have been up for a few weeks. You know, I think only dropped 1 game all year. Cowboys are on a momentum swing at the moment, and I just like the fact that Cowboys can attack from anywhere. You know, they've got the ability to pull your pants down from halfway, or as I said, from sideline to sideline, and they've got great finishes there with Nene and Purdue, as I said, and great back rowers there as well. So they've got a super side, the Cowboys, and they've done extremely well to get themselves in this position to be any chance of going after the Warriors this week. You wouldn't have picked it 5 weeks ago.
No, you wouldn't have picked it from the start. And I was trying to think about jumping on the fence or attacking you and go on the Warriors. Ooh, there's a challenge here. You've put me in a hard spot.
There's a feeling about the Cowboys, isn't there?
There is a feeling about the Cowboys because watching them play last weekend, and I speak about the Cowboys, and I speak about this all the time about that their big players need to play 8, 9 out of 10 performances to get a win each week. But there's some players now stepping up. Nanai, Purdue, that are playing really good football on the back of obviously Drinky. Clifford on the weekend was really good. Dearden's playing some really good football. I'm going to go for the Cowboys too. You've talked me into going for the Cowboys. I've been on the Warriors bandwagon, but I can see that the Warriors can. Well, it'll be a tight one. I just think the Cowboys will have too much flair. Being here in Queensland, big weekend. I think it'll be the Cowboys will get the win.
Home ground advantage up there is big for the Queensland teams. No doubt about that.
Yeah, definitely. But like we said, it's a big occasion. It's a packed house every game. Fans from everywhere. So there's no real fan advantage, but there's definitely a home ground advantage for the teams that don't have to travel too far. I'm going to stick with you. Actually, I'm going to jump back off the fence. I'm going with the Warriors.
Warriors, all right. Wow.
Yeah. The late switch.
The late switch.
I'm confused. I'm actually confused with what are you even talking about, to be honest with you. I thought you just said Cowboys about a minute ago.
Yeah, and I've just done the late switch. The more I think about it, I think the Warriors will win.
Okay. You just talked up how it's the Queensland derby, how Queensland are going to have the favouritism after I said it, and then you spoke about how good the Cowboys are going. Now you just went, I'm going to go Warriors.
Yeah, because the Warriors are sitting above them on the ladder. Their performances the last few weeks have been really good too. I like the way they're playing, and I said you made it hard for me to go away from the Warriors, and I did go away from the Warriors, went for the Cowboys, but now I went back to my feeling. The energy dragged me back to the Warriors, and I'm going to go for the Warriors.
It's too confusing, bro. Get on to the next game, please.
Oh, here we go. He's got an attitude. It must be getting late tonight. What time is it?
It's late enough. 10:30, bro.
He can't even tell the time with your clock.
10:30.
Our last game
you know
was
what?
Saturday.
Wouldn't be bad hearing from the viewers. Actually, our little solid tribe of how the content actually is coming across while we're overseas, because I know it would be a bit different. And obviously, ideally, it would be great in the same studio, and we've got a bit of feedback. But give us some feedback, fans. We'd love to hear about it and anything we can improve, Toddy.
Yes. And our last game of Saturday afternoon or Saturday night is the Tigers v the Dragons. Flano's pulled out the axe. Lachlan Ilias gone. King Tonga fills the number 7 jumper. Young
King
kid
Tonga.
just been put back in the top 30, so he'll be full time next year. Was this a masterstroke from Flano to put him in to make him re-sign, or was it time for Lachlan Ilias to move on? And like I said, rugby league, it's a long time in rugby league, 24 hours or a week. Only a week and a half ago, Kyle Flanagan was heaping praise on how good they were going. A week later, his halves partner fails to perform and cops the axe from the dad. How do you see this one? Tigers v Dragons.
I'm going to go Tigers this game. I just think 2 weeks ago before the Roosters game, I would have been Dragons all day. 1 week in a rugby league is a long time, Toddy. I've said that a few times the last couple of weeks in the show. Best advice I ever got. Tigers are coming off a upset win at home last week. Their effort and desire was as good as I've ever seen from them in years. And Dragons obviously, I wouldn't say they're in turmoil, but when a coach drops your star half, and I know he's only a kid, but he's your half. He's the one they've invested in.
He's not a kid.
What is he? What do you mean he's not a kid?
How's he a kid?
If he's early 20s.
But he's not a kid.
Well, he's a kid compared to us. That's when you know you're getting old and you start calling someone a kid. He'd be 23.
Lachlan has to be 25, wouldn't he?
Wouldn't he? Nah.
He'd have to be, yeah.
But anyway, when you get dropped, when a player like that gets dropped, it means the coach has lost confidence in what they're trying to do. It's as simple as that. You don't drop a half when you've sort of had okay performances. Yeah, they were poor last week, but there's been a fair bit of talk and media attention around his relationship and a few things he said to Ilias. And then for him to make the choice after the weekend's game to drop him, it means there's not much confidence in what they've been doing. That's the honest truth. That's for me, that's the way I read between the lines. And he's invested in this younger kid to come in. The King, Tongan King.
Tonga.
So I'm back in the Tigers this week. I think the Tigers found a good groove last week. We spoke about Galvin, the confidence he showed, overcoming all the pressure. He just handled it like a superstar, which he is. And the Tigers effort and desire for me is the biggest standout for them. Like they've improved in a lot of ways with the players that they got. But I'll go back to that play last week off the field goal attempt. They had about 10 players rushing the kicker. I know most teams are putting in do-or-die attitude there, but it was just something different, the way the Tigers players were invested in that play. And the 2 tackles from Naden and Stafford Tower on the edges that saved tries. That's going to get the Tigers home this week, Toddy, with a no
I'm
Ilias.
with you.
The kid. Ilias out.
I'm with you. The kid's out. I'm with you. I'm going to go the Tigers also. There's going to be a lot of pressure on the Dragons. Obviously, when your star half or your half gets dropped, added pressure goes on to the other half, which will be Kyle Flanagan. What do you think he needs to do to better the Dragons' game? Obviously, Shane hasn't got faith in Lachlan to do that. The pressure now gets put on Kyle because a young kid comes in. He gets a little bit of leeway because he's a young kid coming back into first grade. He's played a couple of games there. What's Kyle need to do for him to not get dropped? Because Lachlan's first. I'm sure if they don't get results, they have to go to something different. What's he need to do?
I haven't watched Tongan King play at all, obviously, and I think it's a lot of pressure on Kyle this week. As much as Ilias has probably been a little bit underwhelming for his influence on the games, he sort of plays quite steady. And as we speak about a bit, that left edge with Gutho, Valentine Holmes, Lalua, and Flano there on that left, they're playing some really good footy, and that's more their dominant side. So Ilias hasn't had to do a whole lot, but what he has done is he's been a foil for Flano. I think this week, as you just said, added pressure. A young kid coming in Tongan kid.
King Tonga.
With King Tonga coming in, it mounts a lot of pressure on Flanner. You're probably going to see him playing more touches and trying to play across the whole field. I don't think that suits Kyle. I don't think that's not his style of footy. He's a player that has to keep things quite simple. And as I said, he's doing a really good job on that left edge. But he's also had a foil there in Ilias. So, but can't really comment too much because I haven't watched the Tongan kid play. So I'm excited to see. Who knows? He might be a superstar and it might be their answer. So we'll wait and see. We will wait and see.
On the Tigers game still, like if you buy what the media is selling, like you'd probably be led to believe that there's still tension between like Luai and Galvin. I know we speak about it heaps and it's get a bit repetitive, but I was just curious. Surely there's been moments in your careers where you've had to play with someone who, you know, you're not in the best stead with, like maybe you don't get along. Like how do you manage that dynamic of playing someone, especially like Luai and Galvin, they're halves partners? Like how do you kind of push that to the side and what kind of effect does it have on you?
It's a good question, Gabe, because to be honest, in the halves, it's actually a big issue. Like, I hated Toddy, that's why we played shit together. But no, but it is honestly you could probably get away with. I haven't really been in too many teams where there's been hatred, like genuine hatred with each other. Or there's I can't honestly. You might have more, Toddy, but especially if you're in the halves together or in a key position, if there's sort of genuine resentment there or something like that, it could be an issue, massive issue, especially when it's a situation like Jerome and Galvin where they've got to combine.
But there's not hatred there, is there? At the end of the day, Jerome obviously probably was disappointed that Galvin was leaving. The way it was brought out that he had no faith in the club moving forward, i.e. their coaches under Benji plus Benji. Luai star signs a 5-year deal, has to back his coach, has to back his team. He's the club captain. He has to stand up and sort of not put a young kid in his place, but has to stand up. The kid's leaving, so he has to be the next guy to turn up and go, well, this is my team. You can't go saying that. There's no hatred. I'm sure they still get along. They probably don't go have coffees together and stuff like that. And I'm sure there's still a little bit of feeling that how it went down, that they'd be disappointed. But at the end of the day, the end result, you go out there and play 80 minutes of football. Everything in your life, any drama you've got going on in that 80 minutes goes away because you go out there, you've got a job to do. You're a professional, and I'm sure that's what they would be talking about. They would have put their differences aside, and that's just media speculation to say that there's still sort of animosity between them and that the group's sort of not fully recovered from it. Yeah. They're recovered. The result on the weekend showed that they're recovered and they'll continue to get better. And I said it last week that the Tigers will look back on this point of the season if they can continue to win games and hopefully play finals football. They'll look back on this part and go, that was part of the process.
No, definitely. Well, like you said, Toddy, there's a lot of stuff that would have been disappointment for a couple of weeks, and it should get blown over. I mean, Jerome, as I said, did the same thing. He left the club and went to another club. So
yeah,
once the dust settles and a few of the rumours get squashed. Look, I read something from Benji the other day. It must have been hard for Benji though as a coach, especially if it's been, even if the words were mixed up, but to hear that weren't perceived as a good coach, you can understand a little bit of disappointment or that it would make things awkward for a week or so or a couple of meetings. But as you just said, a couple of D&Ms over a coffee and a beer, and then both guys express in their sort of ways, and then everyone moves on, don't they?
Oh, it's as you said, Nick, a week in rugby league's a long time. A couple of weeks is even longer. Who knows? We'll probably see Lachlan Galvin re-sign at the Tigers in the next few weeks. Stranger things
I wouldn't be surprised.
Stranger things have happened. And that's where rugby league is. It keeps on giving. It's the game that keeps on giving. The bipolar sandwich. There'll be plenty of people have bipolar Sunday morning turning up to Magic Round after 2 days of footy and 2 days of Caxton Street end-to-end party. And it's the first game Sunday afternoon, the Titans v. the Dogs. A big news coming out of the Titans that Fifita's been dropped to extended bench. Is that Desi wielding the axe or putting pressure, or is he's just not performing?
Yeah, I reckon he's pulled him out. I reckon he's had to make a statement. We saw the Cowboys do that earlier in the year with, was it Nene or
Jeremiah Nene? Yeah,
Nene at the start of the year. Cowboys. Toddy Payton obviously was making a statement there. I see a similar situation here. Obviously, it's one of their marquee players. The team's defense hasn't been great. Haven't got much resilience. It's maybe Desi making a statement. And you can't blame Desi. Like, I'd be putting the big fella in there, no doubt. They need him. They need everyone they can get on the field. But when you're losing that badly and you're showing not much resilience as a team, the coach hasn't got many options, does he, than to sort of try and shake the tree up a little bit. So, the Titans are in a world of hurt at the moment, and a Dogs team coming off an unexpected loss last week. And doggies all day for me this week, Toddy. I can't see him going back-to-back losses. And I know we spoke last week about the recipe to beat them, or that worked for the Broncos last week. I'm excited to see if they sort of try and copy that. I know you spoke in detail about them. That's a blueprint now, and I'm interested to see if they sort of replicate that this week.
Well, it's definitely a blueprint to some degree, but for me, you have to find a quick play of the ball, find momentum first before you even can consider doing that. And the Titans, for me, are struggling to do that. And they're not struggling to do that so much with their attack. It's their defence. They don't seem to win many tackles. They always seem to be on the back foot when they're defending. And that's obviously from the momentum of quick play of the ball. Is when they're defending their try line, they're up and then they become passive, which was strange to watch on the weekend against the Cowboys. Their outside D would shoot up and then become passive and retreat, which is unfamiliar territory, especially when you're playing against a team like the Cowboys. But now they've got the Dogs this weekend. Matt Burton's out again. Bailey Haywood comes into the six, which I like there. It steadies them up, gives them sort of attack, but obviously while they've got attack both sides of the ruck when Matty Burton's there, he sort of plays a little bit different style of footy. I think him and Toby Sexton play really well together. It changes the dynamic of the team. But yeah, for me, the Dogs win, and I think the Dogs win easy. The Titans, as you said, they're in a world of pain. If I was Desi, I'd be putting not Fifita on the extended bench. I'd be putting him up front and making him work his backside off.
I spoke about that before, Toddy. It's good you brought that up about having him in the front row. I reckon he'd be his best bet. Squeeze 25, 30 minutes out of him in the middle.
Well, not even 25, 30. Squeeze 20, 15, 20. Go out there, get me a start. Just squeeze the lemon as much as you can, and once you're ready to come off, give me a little bit more, then come off. And if I don't use you again, or if I use you just again after half time, I think they get a. I don't know. It's hard because obviously the player's got to go there and do it, and then there's a risk of what happens. But I don't know. He could.
You could see him having a similar impact to Payne has, like with his size and speed, and like you said, obviously his motor's probably not as durable as he got as much fuel in the tank as a Payne has up front. But surely with the size of him and how much of a handful he is, off a few 6-agains in the middle of the ruck. Like, how could he not play good?
Well, yeah.
20 minutes, boom, get us a quick play of the ball, come off a couple of cross plays and stuff you've been talking about. Get him one-on-one. Mate, no one can tackle him, let alone a little hooker in the middle of the ruck. I'd be hating tackling him. Be awful.
Yeah, well, and I'm sure everyone would, but I guess that's the $1 million question, is how you unlock him to go out there and put in a performance like Payne Haas does, because standing both together, you'd go, them blokes are very similar players. But at the moment, it's very polar opposites. That obviously Payne's our leading front runner in the competition, and Fifita's still trying to not find his way, but it's definitely putting pressure on him because he's been dropped to the extended bench. Could be injury, could be his hamstring again. I'm not too sure, but it's showing that Desi's not knocking about. The Titans are the most penalised team in the competition at the moment. That come out yesterday. And I think that's because they lose so many tackles. They're not in the game in defence. And when you're not in the game in defence, your attack's no chance because you're struggling to keep your head above water when you're getting beaten in the defensive area, and attack just becomes passive because you've got no energy to attack when you can't actually defend. Not defend. You can't win tackles.
Must win for the Titans this week.
It's a must win for the Titans. It's a must win for any team that is coming off losses. But yeah, the pressure will start to build. But yeah, doggies for me. A second game Sunday afternoon is the Panthers up against the Broncos. Broncos coming off an unbelievable performance last week against the Doggies. Panthers not so great last weekend, coming off another loss. Where do you see this one playing out, and how do you see both teams getting a win? What's the recipe? Obviously the Broncos show what they done last weekend. Selwyn Cobbo at the back again. I think they'll play that power game. They'll bring players back through the middle and then break the middle of the Panthers and then play on the outside of them. Garner's in the centres for the Panthers. Casey McLean's been dropped to the extended bench. So it'd be interesting to see where it goes. But I'm the Broncos. Big crowd there Sunday afternoon for the Broncos at home to wrap up the second last game of the weekend.
Panthers. I'm backing Panthers here because I feel like I'm backing Panthers I'm backing Panthers out of the fact that purely on the fact of being champions. They're in a hole. Mm-hmm. They're at the bottom of the ladder. If they're not going to break through this week, I see that the season's slowly slipping away. And I know that that's an early statement to make, but out of all the teams over the last 5 years, they've been the best big game team, obviously. They've won competitions. They've made grand finals back to back to back. Nathan Cleary's, in my eyes and many eyes, is the best player in the game over the last 3 years. It's the best stage of the year at this point, Magic Round, with a big crowd up there. If the Penrith Panthers can't recap the form that they played 2 weeks ago on this stage, it's dark days for them. So that's why I'm backing them. I really think there's an opportunity for them again to make a statement. We've all been waiting for this all year, for them to sort of, where's Penrith? Where's the Panthers of old? We saw a glimpse of it a couple of weeks ago. Underwhelming again last week. But I'm going Penrith this week purely on the back of you can't doubt a champion. I'm not prepared to do that yet. And Broncos have got the ability to be up and down week to week. So come on, Panthers. Pounce the Panther.
I like that from you, the stick with Panthers. And I guess the question is, if Panthers don't win this weekend, is their season done from your end?
As I just said then, it's getting close. Like it really is because they're obviously – how many wins they had? They've had 2 wins? Two wins on the bottom of the ladder. They've got rep footy coming up soon, Origin footy. Like it's a huge call. I saw Gus Gould the other day chatting about the Origin halves, and every year they do the same thing. But there was a statement about you can't pick you can't pick Mitch and Nathan together. This was Gus's words. You can't pick Mitch and Nathan together in his eyes. It's got to be one with Jerome as the 6. So, yeah, and I just don't see him leaving Nathan out. So I think they're going to lose him for Origin. They're going to have Yowie out for Origin. They're going to have Liam Martin out for Origin. They're going to have who else they got?
Toto.
Yeah, so they got a big couple of months without their best players coming off and not a good start. So yeah, it's D-Day. It's D-Day this week for the Panthers for me. And as I said, I ain't doubting the champion. I don't want to get egg in my face, and I have a small bit of belief inside me that they can get the job done this week and get back on track.
Yeah, well, there's some teams of the last few weeks. Obviously, last week going into the Broncos game, they poor performance over in New Zealand against the Warriors. They get beat. They come back and beat the team that hasn't been beat all year. So there's a recipe for it to happen. For your sake, I hope, and for the Panthers' sake, I hope that you're right and they do get the win because, as you said, you can't knock a champion. But at the moment, I just feel that they're just not up to it. Not up to it. I just feel that the Broncos from last weekend, they'll grow some confidence out of that, and they'll get the job done. Our final game Sunday afternoon to wrap up Magic Weekend, and this is my game of the round again, not because it's my beloved Raiders, but the Melbourne Storm up against the Canberra Raiders. Second versus third, massive game. Obviously, the news of Jamal Fogarty leaving at the end of the year will be a drive for Jamal to play well. This is a great game, a great clash. Both teams in form. Where do you see it happen? I'm picking the Raiders.
Yeah, I'm going to go Melbourne. Just off the back of Melbourne being Melbourne. You can go into detail about the style of how they're going to play. They'll do the same thing they do every week. The thing with Melbourne is that most teams can't compete with them because of the ruck speed that they create. And then obviously off the back of that, how effective their halves are at playing off the advantage line. But we spoke earlier about Knights and struggling to get momentum and play the ball speed. Melbourne, they never suffer from that. And I think as good as Canberra are going, I think it'll be a tidal wave coming at them this week. They've got the middles to aim up, but I just think Melbourne will be able to. I just think Melbourne will win the possession, and I think Melbourne will win the result off the back of that. Also, too, with the class that they got there, and as good as the halves are going for Canberra, I don't think they'll have the answers this week against the Storm.
I see Canberra winning. I see Canberra rolling through the Melbourne Storm's middle. Why they won last weekend against South, they weren't convincing winners. I think they're missing Harry Grant. And I think the Raiders' middle will put too much pressure on the Melbourne Storm's middle, and Canberra's back rows will have a day out again. Hudson Young and Matty Nicholson. And I think Canberra will be too in a tight contest. I'm going to even say by 1 point or around that. They'll win by 2. The Raiders will win. I'm not saying that just because I bleed green either. I just think that the way they're going and the way the Melbourne Storm are at over the last few weeks, I think Canberra get the job done.
It's huge, Canberra. How good are they going? How good is it to see? I know from your end, no point even asking you because you're going to have a positive thing to say because you're a loyal Canberra man. But it's so good to watch. So good to watch the Raiders in this position. And I'm happy. I'm not from Canberra, obviously, and you have a tie to the club. I just enjoy seeing. They're like the Tigers. They're a second club. They're everyone's second team. You want Canberra to do well. I think I love Sticky. I think they're well coached. They're always the underdog. People sort of never really give them the respect that they deserve. Being a sort of country team, they're not in the city. They don't get the same media attention. But I've loved seeing Canberra do well. I love seeing Canberra do well, Toddy.
Oh, yeah, it's good for the game. And as you said, we always talk about Canberra, and Ricky heaps it up himself. He talks about Canberra being the underdogs and that they don't deserve to be where they are, but that's just added fuel for their team. And he's got them humming. He's got a really good mix there. And as I just mentioned at the start of the show and then started this talking about this game, obviously Jamal leaving at the end of the year, I think it's a big loss. I think it's a big loss. I thought while at the end of the day, clubs have got to do what they've got to do and protect what they've got coming. And there's a young kid there waiting. He left Parramatta for this reason to go play NRL football, and he was sitting behind Mitchell Moses and Dylan Brown, and he's bided his time, and now he'll get an opportunity next year. But I think Canberra's let the ball slip here a little bit with Jamal. I think that, like I said, there's no knock on the young kid again. I just think they go backwards. It takes too much time for young kids to come in and find the rhythm straight away. I could be wrong. I might get egg on my face, but I think Canberra's in a window to win a competition.
What do you think?
Jamal Fogarty's a big reason of that.
What's the reason that they wouldn't sign? Like, it's not as if he's a Cherry Evans age bracket. I know Sticky came out and was sort of joking about the third year, but that's obviously the reason that they haven't offered him. They don't think it was worth a gamble to offer him 3 years at that money. That's obviously the reason. Otherwise, they would have done it. As you just said, he ticks every box. He ticks every box.
It shows they've got faith in this young kid. I haven't seen enough of him to say yes or no. But for me to, and I only sit here and say this because you can't judge a kid by playing New South Wales Cup or under 20s on what they're going to be. You have to judge them on playing first grade. And we've seen it so many times. And I'm not knocking on this kid. I'm just disappointed that Jamal won't be there over the next few years in the sweet spot. Jamal's in the sweet spot of his career, and Canberra's in their window to win a competition. And we all know that you only got a certain amount of time to win a competition. We're seeing it with the Panthers at the moment. They went on a run for 4 or 5 years. Players come and go. The players that are at Canberra, they're playing really well, and they continue to play well. They can't keep them all there. So they'll lose players over the next few years because then players will have to leave because the salary cap will push them out. And maybe that's why they've gone with keeping this young kid. But the success that Canberra are having at the moment is on the back of Jamal Fogarty. Not all of it, because Ricky's put a really good team together there, and there's some players in there that are doing their job outstandingly. But Jamal is a big part of this success. His kicking game, his leadership, his control, his goal kicking. They'll lose all that next year, and they'll have to develop a young kid that hasn't been tested or tried in first grade, and he won't get tested or tried in first grade this year unless Jamal gets injured. Because they'd be stupid to drop him if they were on the lower end of the ladder and they wanted to bring him in because Jamal was leaving. They could do that, but they're not going to be on the bottom end of the ladder. They're going to be sitting near the top if they continue to win. So the kid won't get many reps this year, so he'll get tested next year. So hopefully it doesn't backfire on the Raiders because, like I said, we always love to see the Raiders going well, but it's an interesting one for me.
Go the Raiders.
Go the Raiders. When that's our wrap-up of Magic Round. I'll be there for the whole 3 days cheering on the Raiders, obviously, for the last game, but just as I'm a footy nerd, I'll get my footy fix this weekend. And as you said, Mitch, you'll be over there in the Super League. You won't be going because you'll be tucked up in your home there at France with your beautiful wife growing that little baby of yours. Time for our favourite time of the week, our footy nerd questions, and our great mate, little Gaby here, is about to jump on and fire away.
Time for the fan questions. Quick one from me, boys, just off the back what we were talking about there. I feel like, when it comes to teams that win a lot, think about your Storms, think about your Roosters. Like, when they were in form, I felt like everyone wanted to see them lose. And at least for me, it doesn't feel like that with the Panthers. I don't know how you boys feel, but it's almost like you want to see them win still. Do you boys feel the same? And if so, why do you reckon it is?
I want to see the Panthers win just because how cool Nathan Cleary was when we done an interview. And that's not pumping his tyres up or giving him more raps than he needs because he gets plenty of raps. But I don't know, Panthers are a team that everyone seems to sort of like. You want to see them continue to do well. And I guess that thing of can they win 5 in a row? Can they play in 6 grand finals? Like, there's the reasoning why for me.
So you feel the same,
I reckon that my theory is this. Go back to the Silvertails that they used to talk about with Manly versus West back in the day. I think the knock on the Roosters is always it's a privileged club and it's in a rich area and Melbourne not so much, but Melbourne more just because everyone loves to hate them. I just think maybe because of a
lot of Queensland hate too.
The Queensland hate from New South Wales.
Well, what went on?
The players they had. I think it goes back to that Silvertail stuff. I think Penrith, it's built off a working class area, and people love rugby league. People love to see the tough areas do well, and Penrith have built success off the back of a working class area. They did the hard yards for a long time, and then now they've nurtured their own kids mainly from around the Mount Druitt area, turned into superstars, and had heaps of success. That's my theory anyway, because I think that's what I think.
That's a good take, I reckon. Rightio, let's get into some ones for some other footy nerds. This one's from Sammy Ross. Hey boys, can you explain to me why when a team kicks for touch after a penalty, they take the tap and normally pass the ball across to the middle with 1 or 2 passes before the forward carts it up? rarely do they get in front of where they took the tap. I just don't get it.
Well, for semi, the reasoning why that would be, so when you get any sort of set start, so you got a drop out penalty, you have a call straight away, and usually most teams from set starts will get to the 50 as quick as possible. So that when I talk about the 50, it's the black dot. So while it's not about making meters, some teams you'll notice coming out of their red zone. So a penalty that's kicked over halfway, most teams will get to the 50 as quick as possible. When it's coming out of yardage, they'll just take a quick tap, which will be i.e. the centre or back rower will take the tap, and then they'll go to the 50. So there's a method to the madness. Yes, it's not always about making meters. It's about setting up a play. And if they take a hit up and then go to the 50, that means they miss a play early. They'll miss a play, or they'll run out of a play. So that's the reason why they get to the 50 straight away.
Yeah, I mean, I put this one in the notes earlier in the week. Funny, I didn't even see it. This one was from S Polo. Is it time for the Dragons to make a change and drop Ilias to reserve? I guess it was.
He grabbed out the crystal ball. Well done.
Flanagan, that was Flano. Flano wrote in.
Yeah. Shame Flano wrote
Shout out, Flano. Thanks for watching the show, bruh.
From James, boys, who do you think is Newcastle's best options in the halves, 6 and 7?
Well, I know Toddy's touched on it a fair bit, and we all hear about poor Jackson Hastings everywhere he goes. There's always a bad word to say about the guy. And as I said last week, he's a bit of a different cat, Jacko. He'd probably say that himself, but he's on a big paycheck up there, and he's probably the way the team's going and not scoring points. It's a no-brainer to bring Jacko back in. Take the contract out, take all the innuendo and all the past maybe blow-ups or stuff that has happened with teammates. Just the fact you've got someone in your top 30 squad there who's a good on-ball half. Let's put in perspective. The Knights have scored average 10 points. Last in attack this year, second last year. They need to change something, and it's surprising they haven't done it yet. So I'll be putting Jackson Hastings in there, and I'd just be keeping the rest there. You'd have Fletcher Sharp and KP there, and obviously Brayley at hooker. In saying that, Phoenix also does a good job when he's there, and you could either start Phoenix and bring Jaden on or vice versa.
Yeah. I'm going to throw a left field up here. I would go Jackson Hastings and Cogger in the halves. I'd put Fletcher Sharp on a wing, and whatever side they attack to, let him play, roam through the middle and play free-flowing footy.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't mind it.
Give him open. Let him roam. So if he's on the left wing and they have a right side shape, let him sort of jump across that way or find himself through the middle, because at the moment there's not offering anything through their attack down that side anyway, because it's on the back foot.
Do you reckon Fletcher Sharp will move looking to play fullback pretty soon?
Well, he's comfortable, and that's not a knock on him saying that he's not a 6. I just feel that for them to score points, they need a bit of control, bit of not ad-lib, because Jackson and Cogger don't bring ad-lib, but they bring control, but also it frees up Kalen. But if anything, another one I'd maybe try is Kalen at 7 and put Fletcher Sharp to fullback. But Mitchell squashed that the other day pretty quick, so he might be right.
I just don't understand. I just don't understand how the Knights that we're tossing up, even putting Kalen at 7 and all these, and Fletcher Sharp on the wing. Why are we in this position? They've still got enough there to be averaging more than 10 points, even with Jack Cogger there. Jack Cogger's a good little player. To average 10 points, you got Kalen Ponga, who's the most creative. If you lined up the top 5 most creative players in the game, KP's in the top 3. Fletcher Sharp's got more speed than any other half in the comp and is playing great. So I don't understand. There's a deeper issue there, and we don't have the answer.
Rightio, next question's from Campbell here. Is the spark to connect the Titans, their 5'8", Carter Gordon? I believe they spent about $600K on him.
Carter's injured. He's out at the moment with something to do with his head. I'm not actually sure what it is, but Carter Gordon is out indefinitely at the moment. And I don't think he's a 6. He's a centre, I reckon. He's played a little bit of 6 at Tweed last year. Obviously played 10 in rugby. But there's a lot to learn from a 10 coming into league. I think their best bet for the Titans is Kieran at 7, Campbell at 6, Brimson at 1.
This next one here is from Jackson and Kayla. And you've touched on it a bit, but I'd love for you to answer it. Gundy ahead. Would love to hear your thoughts. Does Moses partner Nathan at the Blues in halves? Is Luai being exposed without Nathan? And does that system or maybe not being as good as people assumed? So Gundy ahead, who he's put in the halves for the Blues pretty much.
I'm going to go Mitch Moses and Nath Cleary. I think they'll do really well together.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, Jerome and Nathan, if two of them are going to play on the ball, if you're having Nathan and Mitch Moses play how they do at club level, obviously you'd have Jerome there. But I think going into Origin with a 10-day preparation, Nathan on ball and Mitch happily to play a second fiddle style play and then rotating, I think it'll benefit both their games. And I actually think it'll allow Nathan to dominate Origin more because he doesn't have to be that on ball, play for play. He can take a breath, step back. And we obviously had that great interview that we got to sit down with him. And he says he feels most comfortable playing that style. He enjoys playing that style. So, and I think
both players
having a different look in Origin helps break up Queensland's defence, as me and Todd know. It's a completely different beast out there. And when you have sometimes a bit of an unorthodox style or two different body types that they're not used to, it's hard to defend against.
I'm with you. I think I would go with Moses and Cleary. I think Moses will take a lot of the long kicking game, which will be refreshing for Cleary. You'll be able to get him to see how the game's panning out. But listening to both of them speak when we sat down with them is that Mitchell spoke about comfortability of playing 5'8". He was a 5'8" as a runner, his instinct. So, and the way Nathan plays and Isaiah plays, that will free up Mitchell both sides of the ruck. I'd like to see if they do play with both of them, that they both sort of swing either sides of the ruck. They don't just sit left and right. They let them sort of play out the back of each other best way possible. I think that's the best way. But I think Jerome Luai's doing an unbelievable job at the Tigers. He's gone there. He said that he was going there to change them, and I think he's done that. A lot of their stuff they're doing really well is on the back of Jerome Luai, and a lot of that is around effort.
As a coach of Origin, Laurie Daly, you'd trust Jerome, wouldn't you? Like, he's such a big game.
I don't think they can go wrong.
Player.
Yeah, I agree.
Even what he's done at the Tigers with all the pressure, like he wouldn't have perceived it as pressure, but like he does everything with ease. He never looks. I've never looked at him and gone, "Geez, he looks uptight today," or he hasn't handled any occasion. That's the least of his worries. Execution every now and then, like any player. Even that's rarely off. But as far as handling pressure, he's the best at it.
Well, he definitely has the confidence for it, right? Like, it was a bit annoying when he did it, but he put that photo up on Instagram, like, shut up, he's got work tomorrow or whatever. Like, to be that type of operator to even post that stuff and not care shows that he kind of has the right attitude, at least on the footy field.
He's got a good little cunning attitude, doesn't he?
He's a winner. He's a competitor.
He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, he's got that 6 and 7 mentality.
Next one here is from S Polo again, or S Barlow. After 8 rounds, who do you think will make the top 8, boys?
Ooh.
Tough one on the spot.
Yeah,
tough one on the spot. I'm going to get my little stat folder out here, and I'm going to go my top 8 for you at the end of the year, or at the end of the year, the way it plays out. Okay, I'm going to go with the Bulldogs, the Storm, the Raiders, the Warriors, the Broncos,
That's 5.
the Cowboys, the Sharks, and
Sharks 8th.
That's
7th.
7. He's got one more.
Wow.
and I see
Rabbitohs.
no, I see. I'll say the Tigers will clinch the 8th spot.
I like that. I like that. Say it's a bit off the top of the head. Yeah, you want to have a crack, Mitch, or you're all right?
Yeah, I'll have a crack. I'll go Melbourne first. I'm going to go second. I will go... Who's on second at the moment? You've got me off guard.
Storm.
I said Storm first. Then I had...
Dogs, probably.
Yeah, sorry, Storm. I'm going Storm first. Dogs. Cronulla. I'm backing Cronulla to still stay up there. I'm gonna go Warriors at 4, Broncos at 5, Canberra at 6, Cowboys at 7, Tigers at 8.
Leave the Broncos out.
So this is where you shouldn't ask me off the cuff. Broncos.
Yeah.
Well, so that's what fan questions are about, mate. Put your
Broncos are at 6.
on the line.
Broncos are at. Well, Tigers fall out then.
Yeah.
Tigers fall out. And Broncos go just outside the 5th. I forgot Broncos. So Broncos are at 5th, and then my pecking order just goes back down. So Tigers fall out.
Tough race.
Tigers fall out. But even just hearing all that, we spoke about.
You've left out the Dolphins, the Roosters, the Panthers, things like that. That's a tough. It's.
Well, Dolphins, Roosters, Panthers, I probably don't expect to make it, to be honest.
Do the Sharks fall out? Do they fall in a heap?
Nah, Sharks. I've got Sharks in top 4.
Shut up.
Sharks are in my top 4. What are they on? What are they sitting at the moment?
9th.
The Sharks are going all right. Sharks aren't
Sharks
ninth.
are 6th. 7th.
Aren't they?
7th.
6. About 2 points out of the 4. 2 points out of the 4.
Yeah.
They only slipped the game last week. They win last week. They're in the top 4.
Nah. Yeah, we shoulda, coulda, woulda. If only.
It's getting late, bruh.
Let's move on to the next one. These next 2 ones here, they're from me. A bit of fun. In your prime, out of the pair is who could drink more.
Whoever's mind went first would get paranoia after fucking 10.
We come out of the blocks hard. I reckon that's a better question. There'd be 2.
We come out of the blocks real hard, and then it was a race to who carried on the first.
2 beers. Then the third one, it was heroin head. Just like that, just not knowing where we were, delusional, and then all the good stuff used to come out of the cupboards. All the fun stuff used to just take you for 3 days.
This one I saw. I think it was Woodsy answer, but it was who's the tightest teammate you ever had.
Fuck, Gal.
That's what he said too, I think.
Gal.
I'm trying to think who mine was.
About it.
Who was the tightest teammate? I can't really think.
Wasn't you, was it, Mitch?
Nah, Piercy's not tight. He's probably the most generous I know.
I'm given. I can think of a few. I've got a few mates though that actually away, a guy that I grew up with that was the best ever. He wouldn't have paid for a feed the whole time we grew up. And then it was always these ones. Oh, you sure, bruh? Okay, sweet. Before you even finish.
Are you sure? Yeah.
And then after about 10 years, you go, this fucker's never paid for a feed or anything ever.
That's because you're too nice, but
yeah,
you could get away with that if people wanted to. That's just the generosity, your generosity.
I'm a generous person, but I could never be a tight ass. I think good things come to you when you're not. Not that that's the reason you do it, but I just think Gal's probably the richest tight ass though, Because usually people, no, you got to put in perspective. Usually people that are tight asses end up with nothing, but Gal's worth about 50 million. So he's a genius. He's a genius.
Luke Lewis was tight.
I heard he's the best. I'm trying to think of any Roosters boys.
Well, I think Woodsy was saying, he goes, I think playing at the Sharks or whatever, there was plenty like Gal and all that were tight, but then the contrast of going to Manly and the Travojevic boys will just shout out the arse. They were so good, so generous.
What are you, Gabe? Are you a tight ass, mate?
Oh, look, I'm down the middle, mate. You know, it depends which day you get me. You know?
You're doing that. No, I'll pay for it, bro. Okay, sweet. No worries. Still makes me laugh, those ones.
All right, well, that's another wrap of the footy review, footy nerds review and fan questions. I hope everyone enjoys their magic round of rugby league just like I will. Hope your team wins, and we'll see you all again next week. And have a great week, my little mate. And it's always good to see you ahead, even though it's late and ready for bedtime over there and it's early here. It's the best way we can do it, and keep loving us, boys.
All love, brother, to you and to the footy nerds. And we're building. Come with us.